Greetings, Marv Gardens here reporting in for this Wednesday day. How is everybody doing? And as you know, Wednesday is a contemporary, so now we're going to be talking about something that you can probably relate to a little more than my previous talks. Which, I feel like that's always a good transition for the weekend to get more slightly more personal. And today I will be talking about stability versus stagnation. And the reason why I talk about that is because I feel like stability stability and stagnation are both opposite poles, right? But essentially, if you don't pay attention to both, you'll always find yourself um accomplishing both, but that's the problem. But then again, I think it all depends on who you are, really, because as people, as objects who are not what you would call well, as non-control objects, we have the ability to basically choose how we wish to control ourselves. So I can't critique anybody who chooses to basically paint goals that's opposite of color of what I like. So, with that in said, we'll first go into what I'm talking about. By stability, of course, we're talking about a situation in which all goals have been achieved, whatever they are. And that's I feel like that's I say not a pipe dream, but it's more of a that's wishful thinking, because the idea is that, like, for most people, you'll never have the perfect stability, but you have what you call ideal stability, and you will have what you will call realistic stability. Realistic stability is basically people sitting back as old people, and that's it. Everything is taken care of. Ideal stability is if everybody's dreaming, everybody want to be rich and just make money, more money, and more money. But yeah, I think that where I fit in is somewhere between realistic and what you call ideal stabilities, because the idea for me is that you know if I had to work for the rest of my life, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Some people probably agree, some people probably don't agree, but that's just my thing. Stagnation, on the other hand, is when you are basically no longer pushing yourself. And I feel like everybody goes through periods of stagnation, even when they don't want to, because the idea is that stagnation is a precursor to progression. There we go. Now, the reason why I feel like stagnation and stability are related is because you can find yourself at times juggling both and then ending up with neither easily. Or you can find yourself juggling both and accomplishing both, and then neither thing contributing to what they need to contribute to. So to put that into perspective, it's like a business, right? Let's say you started a business, right? And you're making money, but you're not making profit, that's every business is fair. Most people think that business is fair, not making money. Not making money is the easy way out, because you could just be like, well, bankruptcy. Whereas if you're breaking even, then you can't make a argument that you are in dire strait, because your finances are lying against you and basically saying you're fired. So that's why which why stagnation can be a problem because as objects, like I said, that likes to exercise our choice of a choice, it can be it can be frustrating at times to exercise a choice that puts you in a position to not have a choice. So that's just the perspective. And the reason why stability leads to this is because you can push yourself into a hole, if that makes sense, right? Because the idea is that when you opportunities can always turn into double-edged swords. Like for example, okay, let's say you meet a girl, right, and everything is kicking off beautifully, right, and then you just decide to jump the gun, and then all of a sudden you trying to move in with this female and yada yada yada, and to be honest with you, the relationship is premature, and then push come to shove, now she wants you out, and then boom, you just push yourself into a hole because you probably already at that point, if she's by the time she gets to a point where the relationship is straining her out, then she'll be like, you probably already moved your stuff in, you probably already done got comfortable, yada yada yada. And now you gotta go back to whatever you was doing before you met this girl, and this is how people get thrown into stagnation. But that's just a situation to so you can relate. It didn't happen to me like that, but you know, I have my own situations that I had that resulted from me trying to pursue stability. But on a more non-personal note, you can basically be a victim of stagnation any kind of way, really, because what happens is you make a deal with the devil, right? And how you make a deal with the devil is that you begin to make short-sighted moves. And these short-sighted moves are they end up becoming the steps to your doom because your rationale is that if I do these moves, right, I can you can uh huh you can basically benefit right away. There we go. And this ill thought logic is how a lot of people get trapped. Because if you jump the gun and be like, I want fast soon, then don't get mad if the consequences are too much for you, because the idea is that the what comes with fast is hard. And that's just a that's the truth of the world, because you can apply this logic to anything. Anything that moves fast is going to move hard. And we're not even talking about physics. We're just talking about things in general. If you get this to the purest level, then you can explain why hot is hot, why light is light, or why you know running into stuff is dangerous. Oh man. But to and it just goes to show why society also is built the way it is, because I feel like everybody as kids felt that that strain, not strain, but that more of a what you would call boredom, basically. And the reason why boredom exists is because, like I said, that desire to have a choice in any and all matters is going to make you feel like, if I was doing it, then life will be like, I feel like everybody is susceptible to that logic that if they were doing it, everything will move faster. And, you know, for the most part, it's not true because, that's that short sightedness. Like, if you were to sit back and really plan something out, then you will realize that nothing happens quickly. Even the things that do happen quickly still took time to get to that point. And that's another law of the universe, that even though the world is moving at the pace that it's moving, at one point or another, nothing was moving. Also, when it did finally start moving, things didn't start moving at the pace that they're moving now. And you don't need a textbook to tell you that one. You can just look at how babies are born. You can look at how just look at your car. Does your car start out moving at 60 miles per hour? No, it doesn't. Does anything that you've gotten, did you get it right away that you like? Anything that you value in your life, did you get it right away? And right away suggests when you wanted it, basically. So it's like, that's just the truth. So what I'm trying to get to with all of this is that you find yourself getting ruined faster, trying to pursue faster, because stability is just that it's like a board game. If they ever made a board game, call it stability. And the reason why it would be a good board game is because the idea is that you could try to get to the end fast, right? And that's why that would be where the tricks come in. However, don't assume that just because you're going slow, you'll also guarantee anything. That's another way that people find themselves tricked. You know, so it's like that's why I said they're like opposite poles. Stability is the fast lane. Stagnation is the slow lane. Technically, even though by definition you're not going anywhere, but you get the idea, right? It's like the slowest setting, and stability is the fastest setting, right? So what happens is, right, and whatever that you do in your life pursuits, right, you should always be wary of your stability because you can't force progress. Progress happens automatically. Anytime you try to put your will into things, your choice, right, you will always find yourself susceptible to ruin. And the reason why you find yourself susceptible to ruin is because your choice is not a thought, it's an instinct. Believe it or not. And I know I talked about a little bit about animal instincts, but your choice is it's not a logical process. So you're not making the best life choice here when you life decision, life whatever, when you say I want to do this or I want to do that. That's not a move. That's a decision. Another thing to talk about, decisions and moves. But the idea is that in order to make stability, you have to chart stability. So it has to be planned. It has to be essentially created. And the reason why it has to be created is because you have to take into consideration there will be factors to slow you down. There will be factors to limit your progress, and there will be factors to make you not win. So, you know, that's just a common courtesy of anything that you have to expect, what you would call friction. On the other hand, you can always find yourself getting too comfortable with going at your current pace. And this is where a lot of people fell at. Because, true, slow and steady wins the race, but the difference between winning a race and there being a race at all is that you should probably get there while people are still waiting for you, right? uh, no, it's insults to anybody that likes slow and steady, but you know, and I feel like that's the point that people miss, that there is a such thing as going too slow, and if going too slow for you is not too slow for another person, then great. But most likely, more than not, it's going to be. Now, what that means is that if that person feels like their pace is not fast enough, then no, if that person feels like another person's pace is not fast enough, then that means that their pace will stagnate you, but progress for them. And likewise, if a person feels like you're moving too fast and they're moving at a more comfortable pace, that means that your pace will threaten their stability, even though it won't stagnate them. It will threaten their stability, which is probably even worse than stagnation. To be honest, because like I said, ill-gotten stability results in a ruin. So that's just a inverse relationship. When when you slow yourself down, you stagnate. When you speed yourself up past your comfortable zone, you ruin yourself. And I feel like this is a commonality among all people, because in a world in which people are supposed to essentially commingle, this can be a very difficult task, because you get too many people's paces involved. It's like an average. You gonna always have people. We're not talking about grades though. We're talking about miles per hour, right? We got people. We got the speed demons. We got the safety drivers on the other end, and then we got the cruisers, right? Speed demons need to play with speed demons. Slow and steady need to stay with slow and steady, and the cruisers need to stay with the cruisers, because I feel like no matter how relaxed you are as a person, you're gonna always feel uncomfortable by somebody that's going too fast. And no matter how comfortable you are, you're gonna always be bothered by somebody who's moving too slow. Because you're going to that's the real danger is when somebody is stagnating you. Because I feel like most people have that instinct to avoid ruin to their stability. Well, ruin resulting from ill-gotten stability. So the problem does occur when you find yourself comfortable with a pace that you're really not comfortable with, and I feel like that's where a lot of people get stuck at. Is because the idea is that if if it depends on what your vision of stability is. Some people find themselves stagnated because they're trying to jump the gun for their stability, whereas some people basically try to change their goal of stability to fight stagnation, and that's the worst thing you could do, is to fight stagnation, because stagnation can't be fought. Stagnation is your inner instinct telling you. Stagnation is your inability telling you that this is not this is not going to get me anywhere, and you know that may be putting people down, but you can't help how you feel. Most people, I feel like that's the problem. Most people tend to throw away their personal feelings for another, right? But in reality, you can't do that, because this is your life. When you woke up, the moment you first woke up in life, right? You made a choice, and your choice wasn't dependent on anybody else. And there's the truth of your life, that your life was chosen by you. Most people think, my parents did this. Your parents ain't do nothing for you but be instruments for you. Like a ladder to a construction man, or like a lever, or like a hinge, right? Nothing. There is nothing that you can blame on other people if you're trying to decide for yourself, and that's another problem. So I feel like in this day and age, stability is not a problem, even though it's depicted as such. People will blame all types of things on stability. Oh, I need a better paying job. Oh, I need better opportunities. Oh, I need a different environment. Oh, education. I need more education. Like just ridiculous things. Like just people will blame just about anything they can to avoid pointing back to themselves, right? And this is how you stagnate, right? Because you're so scared to ruin yourself that you'll just be like, bump it. I'll just put myself in a less pace position, right? And if I do it that way, I don't have to worry about me moving too slow, moving too fast, right? And I just it you can't. Life is in lanes. I know you heard the term before, stay in your lane, right? And that's just a it's just a, I think you call those idioms, an idiom of what basically what I'm talking about. And the reason why is because, like I just said, you have to figure out where you fit in. Are you a speed demon? Are you a cruiser? Or are you a what you call a driver? A safety driver, right? And if somebody if I feel like this is the problem why people get pulled into this in the first place, is that because we all want different things, right? We all find ourselves at with that moral impasse, right? And this becomes most apparent when you have the um 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 mm, mm, mm. I don't know what do you call it? Cause I feel like I get tired for the females and I keep dragging them into these conversations. So I say you get a moral impasse when you try to enter your political atlas. Let's talk about what I was talking about before, right? And this is in a political atlas is a good example for this, because like I said, you can't just walk into a group and be like, hey, I'm the new guy. You have to work your way into it. And this is how a lot of people stagnate, because they try to work their way into groups that move out of place on average. You gotta expect a group by definition is going to have a average speed. It's not going to have a speed that resembles just one person. You're gonna have a speed for everybody. So, you know, a lot of the time people feel like the group is moving too fast for them, right? Well, at least on the surface. Your choice, on the other hand, is going to be like, yo, these guys are too slow, right? And the reason why is because your choice is going to push you to pursue a stability that's more or less ideal versus realistic. And this transfers into, you always got those guys that want to climb the totem pole, right? Everybody like climbing the totem pole and being the top head, right? Everybody like being the leader, the you know what I mean, the center of the attention, right? And I feel like that's a natural flaw of everybody to want to have everything and not work for it, right? So the soberer the reality that sobers us is failure, right? And the reason why it sobers us is because it teaches you that you can lose if you place your bets on the wrong thing. and you can lose pretty bad depending on how much you bet in here. So it's like, I feel like that fixes most people, but for some people it never helps. It never sets in. And to make this a more relatable discussion, I'll put myself into this. I'm one of those people that I don't like to learn failure's lesson, because I feel like, I take my motto from what you would call the quote, the idiom, whatever. That's not an idiom. From the quote, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger, right? So, the reason why I chose that is because I feel like, even if I'm a hard headed person, right? Even if I scrape my knees a lot of times, right? As long as I can still get back up, and I can do it all over again, right? And I feel like this is a very specific trait, because I wouldn't tell this to anybody's kids, because that's like telling a kid to jump off a cliff and telling them, if you hurt yourself, you'll be all right. But you don't know that. You'll never know what'll happen to the next person, which is why it's always bad to tell somebody to follow in your footsteps, which is, I feel like, a problem that a lot of parents face. Because, as a parent, you want your kid to admire you. You want your kid to kids. You want your kids to basically take something from you into their life, because that's the only way that they'll really appreciate you, right? Because, I feel like this. Now I can go to the girls. I feel like the girls, they all too well show that flattery is, it's useless. Telling your mom and your daddy that you love them, that they're the best, and yada 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 yada. That's cool and everything. It sounds nice, but I feel like every parent will feel better if they saw their child succeed, especially if their child succeeded following on them. So, this can push a lot of children in a lot of different ways, because, some children who want to please their parents, like, you're always gonna have these kids that have to please their parents. That's how we get the fast lane kids. Then we got the kids that take the opposite, and they be like, I'd rather just please myself, and they go with their own. They get used to moving at a slow pace. And then you got the kids that basically find themselves stuck between the fast lane kids and what you would call the slackers, and those are the cruisers. And the reason why you call them cruisers is because they move at a steady pace. It's just that they're not racing. They're not competitive. They're just, what you call it, progressive, in that they will only take steps as far as they can measure. They will not take anything too wide. They'll not take anything too small. And I feel like that's why college has become a what you would call a highway, right? It's more of a highway uh uh a highway institution. And the reason why it's a highway institution is because I feel like the main traffic of kids will be on a college level, right? For the cruisers, if you're talking about cruisers, people that's going towards safe stuff. And the reason why I call it safe stuff is because the idea is that if you do what you need to do, you'll get the job. Now, for some kids, this isn't enough. You got the speed demons. They be like, I skip college. I want to be like a rapper or something like that, right? And I guess if it works for you, it works for you. But you got the other kids that be like, I don't want to be a rapper. They got the entrepreneurs out there. And then you got other kids that be like, bump that. I know somebody. And then that's how you get the other, you get the celebrities and stuff. So, there's more than one way. Oh yeah, I forgot the slackers. Excuse me. No insult to the slackers. But slackers. Me and you probably got the most in common because we understand that the surest way is the way that people won't take, right? And this is why I put myself into the category. I'm a slacker because I know it won't work no other way. If I don't choose a route that people won't take, then I won't have a route to take. Because the speed demons move too fast for me, I'll be honest with you. I can't keep up with that. The cruisers move too slow for me. And that's just the truth. But the slackers, they move just right for me because we're not competing with each other. And that's what makes it work. Because if I know that I'm moving at my pace, I don't have to worry about anybody else's pace because I know that they're not worried about my pace neither. They're busy focusing on their pace. The Now, before I said that the cruisers are not competitive, and you had to ask me, and you probably had to ask yourself, now why would he say a cruiser, somebody that's driving at the same, what you call it, is not competitive? And I'll put you at this. This is why I call college a highway institution. Because if you are familiar with driving, you know that people only get into accidents when they try to go speed demon, right? So, you know, it's the same logic. And if you're a cruiser, right, then you trying to totem pole your way up, which is not even really totem pole because you have to establish what is a normal pace for everybody else. By you have to interact with everybody else to figure out what's going on. So I feel like this is how a lot of people turn into speed demons is because they basically see what everybody else is doing and now they feel like they got the advantage and now they trying to jump the gun and do all this and all that. And those are the people that essentially either don't get what they want or reach failure first, which is basically the same thing because I feel like people that reach failure first or they feel worse than the people that fail because the idea is that you put extra effort in thinking that it would get you a faster result, right? Well, in reality, all it did was assure that you would not succeed. So even if you wasn't supposed to succeed in the first place, I feel like you would have gotten more out of it had you just let things take their natural course. Because how that works out is that when you let things take their natural course, you have time to notice stuff. So to put that back into an analogy, if the speed limit is 55 miles per hour, but you want to go 80, 90, right? You're not going to notice somebody. You're not going to notice what's going on around to your left and to your right or behind you or frankly in front of you really because you're so focused on getting past everybody that you're not going to realize that you've already ignored anything that could have came your way just going at the normal pace. So that's just a explanation for that. Now for the slackers like us, like me, well me, not y'all. The reason why we got thrown to the bottom is because cruisers tend to they have that speed demon in them and that they want to keep the average whatever everybody else is comfortable with. Now, the reason why slackers got thrown to the side is because typically your average is probably your average is probably not going to be fitting with everybody else. Even though you're not a speed demon per se, slackers will always find themselves sticking out because when they need to go slow, they go fast. When they need to go fast, they go slow. And that's just the difference. That's why they're not a cruiser or a speed demon. Because they're not focused on speed, even if they find themselves moving a little faster, and they're not focused on everybody else when they find themselves moving a little slower. So that's another difference there. And how this all leads back to stability and stagnation is that stagnation tends to happen to those who think that's like us. Stability tends to be the goal that everybody wants but few get. And when we all get to where we want to get to at our desired speeds, like Google Maps, you can find yourself like what you would call it, kind of unfulfilled. And the reason why you find yourself unfulfilled is because, like I said, we all have that ideal stability and then a realistic stability, right? Like realistically, you would want to have enough, you would want to make enough to get old and be old, right? Ideally, you want to make enough to basically not want to get old, right? So the reason why we find ourselves unfulfilled is because we feel like we feel like we've been stagnated, right? Once you get to where you need to get to, but in reality, people forget that getting somewhere at all was the true miracle. That was the reward of all of this, right? Because how pissed would you be, right? If you drove 2, 3, 4, if you drove like 6 hours, right? And when you got to your destination, the destination was closed. Or you got to your destination and the destination was no longer there. Or you got to your destination and the destination got moved somewhere else. Like there's just so many things that can happen to your destination that I feel like people find themselves short sighted in their appreciation for it. Like if I could walk to Europe, right? Like physically walk to Europe, right? I would not be pissed if the first thing that they asked me was, "Do you have a visa to be here?" I feel like I would be happy that I actually made the trip there in one piece, and I did it by myself. To be honest with you, like that, I feel like that's just how I think, man. Now, you might be asking, so why would you walk to Europe, even assuming it was physically possible, right? And the reason is this: that's my slacker mentality. I'm not worried about how fast I get there. I'm worried about getting there. But you know, that's just a fact of a matter thing. What I'm trying to get through with all of this is that you know stability has always been a goal of the 21st century of society in general, right? Excuse me. Too often we talk about how other people felt, right? Too often we talk about you know all the things that's wrong, right? Very few times do we sit back and appreciate things for what they are. Which is funny, I'm talking about this since in a couple of weeks. I mean days. It'll basically be Independence Day, which is a nice what you call it for a nice topper for what things have basically did. And you know I feel like that's just one holiday that represents how the world should look at things, right? Every time you do something right, it should be like a birthday, right? Every time you reach a step in your plan, it should be like a birthday. You should like most people take a picture when they're young. They take pictures when they're a little older. But people stop taking pictures when they get older. And I always wonder that. Why do you stop when you're still progressing? Why do you stop when you're still accomplishing? But that's just a habit of your instincts. What you view as an accomplishment, as a progression, is purely indicative of your choice in the matter. So people tend to feel like if they don't have a choice in the matter, then it's not an accomplishment. But it is an accomplishment, because not having a choice in the matter means that you don't make it to the matter, right? And the reason why you don't make it to the matter is because it's basically like saying this is going to happen 100%. Is it like there's no guarantee in the world, right? Because if there was, there would be no world. And the reason why there would be no world is because whatever was guaranteed to happen would have already happened, right? So that's just a more of a exercise as to the logic I'm talking about here. And this is not supposed to make you just have a renewed vigor as to how you look at life. This is supposed to show you that life is not as you look at it. And this may mean nothing to you, right? It can mean something to you, it can mean nothing to you. Either way, it doesn't affect me. But what it should affect though is that you should pay attention to how you measure things, right? We all have a tendency to make our own measurements, right? A world is they say the world was built off of precise measurements, right? But in reality, the world wasn't built in measurements. The world was built with choice. So this whole societal structure thing is it's like a bad instrument, right? And the reason why I say it's a bad instrument is because it tries to tell you what your life is measured by, right? And that's how a lot of people stagnate, because they wait for society to tell them when to feel like they've accomplished something. They wait for society to tell them when they are supposed to feel like they failed. They wait for society to tell them when they are supposed to pursue something. And that's just a learning curve that a lot of people develop with. That when you decide to include your choice in the matter, that is when your life will start to make progression. And until you make this point, until you make this effort, life will always be stagnated for you. And the motivation for you making your choice is to desire a idea of stability, realistically. Because ideal stability is just supposed to get you started, right? To get you in that mindset that I should do something, because if I do, it would be kind of cool if this happened. It would be kind of cool if that happened. Like, you know what I mean? So that's just I feel like everybody gets that, but everybody doesn't do it. Because if I told you right now that I had a milestone, right? I had a birthday the other day, right? You wouldn't believe me, because the first thing you would ask me is when your birthday. My birthday wasn't yesterday. However, my birthday still happened because I reached a milestone. I had a plan. I have a plan that's ongoing, and I'm making progress in it. So I can't say that I'm too uh I can't say that I'm too far back. I'm not as ahead as I should have been, but I can't say that I'm not going nowhere, right? And that's just a reality that a lot of people miss. Because, if somebody told you that your goals, well, yeah, your goals are dictated by what people acknowledge, how would you feel about that? You ain't gotta tell me nada because I ain't trying to hear it. Your goals, your accomplishments have nothing to do with me. But if they did, would that make the matter more or less? You see what I mean? So that's just a focus that you should adopt because it's just it's too easy to fail in life, man. It is. It's so easy to fail in life that it's sad, really. So why not create more success for yourself? Why not, you know, make the victory all the more sweeter for yourself? Because I feel like a lot of people become bitter by not appreciating themselves, by not appreciating your own efforts. And I feel like this starts when we're young because we get so used to people acknowledging us, right? We get so used to people telling us we did good. We get so used to people telling us, you're doing the right thing. And that's just that should just be a appetizer, right? That should not be your main course for your life because you can't use people to feed yourself. You have to feed yourself off of your own self, what you would call like what you would call being a self what they call a self starter, right? And the reason why is because the idea is that people giving you that appreciation, right, is going to get so far and few in between. It becomes more like a drug addiction, right? And the reason why it's like a drug addiction is because you get the you graduate I don't know, middle school, right? Then you graduate high school. Then you graduate college. Then you go to work. Then you start working. Then you get to then your spending money becomes your next means of um um your goal progression, right? And the idea with this structure is that the goals become so far and few in between that you don't even notice that you're spending long periods of time not even appreciating what you're doing. Get so focused on getting the job done that you just sit back, you just be like, word. And you'll notice this when somebody asks you, hey, what you doing? How's it going? What you been up to? Yada yada yada, right? And if you're in the middle of something, you ain't gonna have nothing to say really, so the question is gonna irritate you. So when somebody asks you about something, it's gonna be more like a book, like you're reading a book, right? I reply with a dull but reluctant, a not a dull but um what you call it, a dull but fabricated answer, yada yada. And you should never feel like your life is a play or a movie because life has a lot more flavor to that. Now, I'm sorry that this turned more into a what you call it, a cheer up speech. It's not a cheer up speech. It's just a demonstration of what I've been talking about this basically hour. And the reason why it is a demonstration is because once you've isolated yourself, right, and figured out what stagnates you and what is stability for you, then I'm pretty sure you should be constantly updating yourself on how far you are from stability. I don't feel like your goals should be so far few in between that your stability is not even stability anymore. It's just like to put this into perspective, never RuneScape your life, right? If you never heard of RuneScape, look up RuneScape, right? And I know this may sound weird to have someone tell you to look up a video game, but it's not a video game. It's a depiction of life. And the reason why it's a depiction of life is because basically I'm gonna save you the all of this the waste when you click if you do listen to what I said and feel like you wasted your time. I'm gonna save you that, right? This is how the game flows, right? You're basically reproducing a process, right? Essentially executing a program, right? Over and over and over again, right? And what happens is you start off with rapid progression, right? You start off getting levels quickly. But as the goals for your levels begin to extend, then you find yourself in long, dull, arduous periods, basically feeling like, oh boy, I gotta click this like 1,200 more times, and then I'll get to where I need to get to. And then after I get to that, I gotta click it like 2,000 or 3,000 more times. And then I'll get to where I get to. And then when I finally get there, I gotta click it 5,000 and 8,000 more times. And then I'll reach the level I need to get to, right? And the reason why this explains your situation is because if you notice, the goals started to they became less like goals and more like climbing mountains, right? And I would never tell someone not to climb a mountain, but rather I would tell them that maybe you should pay attention to your surroundings while you're climbing mountains, so you can develop it's like being your own cheerleader, basically, right? And the reason why is because that's how a lot of people give up. The distance between the goals becomes so long that it doesn't feel fulfilling anymore. And that goes back to what I was talking about being unfulfilled. That, what's the point in doing something, and if at the end of it you feel like, great, that was cool. And a lot of people mess this up by thinking, maybe I picked the wrong. It's not that you picked the wrong goal. You just waited too long to appreciate what you did. That's all. And I feel like this becomes vastly hard when you try to create goals with people, because your goal of progression may not be a goal of progression to your partner. Your goal of progression may not be a goal of progression to your team. Your goal of progression may not be a goal of progression to whoever you're trying to reach. So that's just a consequence of what happens when you include society in your goals, your cheerleader system. You find yourself the only one in the room with your feelings. And the problem is, that's not a problem, but if you feel that way, you should probably fix it. Because just like somebody is not going to walk up to you and be like, hey, I just did this and this, isn't that great? And you be like, yeah, you shouldn't expect that person to get mad, because that's the same exact position they're going to be in when you start to pat yourself on the back. So all in all, you should always mind yourself as you proceed towards stability, and be wary when your progression to stability includes people, because stagnation will be your next challenge. And then once you find yourself reaching your goals of stability, you need to make sure that whatever you accomplished was indeed an accomplishment. Because if it doesn't feel like an accomplishment, you're gonna throw yourself into a loop that will never end. And that's the hidden jewel of stagnation. That stagnation is not always what it seems. It's not always being stuck chasing a current goal, but rather being looped back into the goal system. So, with that said, always, always find completeness, because it does not mean anything if all you can do is want stuff. Supporters, shout outs. I mean, shout out to Anita Hoover, Shamia Skinner, Chris Vasquez, and my man from the mall who my PSP forgot about. But I didn't forget you. That's the difference. Shout out to my anonymous patrons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, and 63. Now, in the meantime, for the next 3 to 4 minutes, this will be a commercial break. But yeah, enjoy yourself. Get you a quick bathroom break, and I'll be right back. Welcome back. This is the Tech Hour. And today we'll be talking a little. We're gonna have to finish up the tech talk about telephones and stuff. Well, not finish up, but I missed another invention that came around. That was the television. And the reason why I figured I would talk about the television is because essentially it is a it's a early computer, technically more of a monitor. That's why I didn't really include it, because um to make a monitor is not really a Marvel invention. When you look at the difference between when you look at the insides of a computer versus the insides of a television, then you could understand why it wasn't really a big deal, especially considering that television has always had a it's always been a wired connection. Television has never been a um a mobile invention. So that's why I figured that it wasn't that big of a deal to talk about televisions while I was talking about telephones and stuff. I was also supposed to talk about radios, but I feel like I touched on radios and television. So yeah. I'll also be talking about cameras and probably include yeah, I'm skipping a lot of topics. Well, not skip. I'm including a lot of topics. I'll probably talk about microphones and speakers too, because the idea is that it uses all of that technology in one anyway. And the reason why it does is because they came around the same time. Going back, cameras was coming up when televisions was coming up. Microphones and speakers was it that was more close to the radio, but what you would call a the reason why the microphone speaker was different was because you got to remember when the movies came out, the movies it didn't have sound. That's why speakers and microphones became a separate invention, because they essentially had to bring that together with picture, which essentially brought to life the television. So you can see how all of these topics jump into one. So let's start with the television is we'll start at the bottom, right? Um let's start with the camera. The camera was a I feel like it's another one of those generation differentiating inventions, because kudos to the man or men who found out the materials that made the camera possible. Because essentially, I'll explain to you what the camera is. The camera is essentially taking light, right? It's taking light, and it is using it to react to a surface, right? And this surface gets reflected back. Like, okay, if you ever noticed on the camera, right? If you ever remember the disposable cameras, right? They used to always have this little lens that you look through, right? And the idea is that the flash reacts with the lens, reflects back into the material that's inside the camera, and then the camera captures that reflection, essentially. That's what made the camera like almost God, really, to be honest with you, because the idea is that it gave objects the ability to see. It gave objects the ability to take a image in an objective sense. And the reason why cameras are I feel like cameras have lost their objectiveness, because the moment they decided to what you would call pixelize it, or basically teach the teach the computer how to camera picture things, right? The objectiveness went out the door because you're no longer using physics to make this happen. You're basically creating your own method in a flaw. I call it flawed manner because the computer can't do anything unless it's taught how to do it. So the computer is also limited to whatever its resources are, right? So if your resources, what you would call getting a high res pic, aren't that good, then you can see why computer pictures aren't the most accurate, because they do not capture the object in the which you how it would appear if you were looking in a mirror, or how it would appear if you was looking on a reflective surface, a good reflective surface, because a lot of surfaces reflect, but a lot of surfaces don't reflect accurately. That's the problem. Um, and the camera was a good jump starter because it essentially allowed for the motion picture, right? Because the idea is that if you could capture an image, what happens if you capture multiple images together, and then what we call streaming today in video, they didn't have video back then, so they basically took images together and ran them together, basically, what you call a projector. The projector was the first video camera, in my opinion. Um, and I feel like that was a excellent use of logic to basically take the simple things and make them work together. You already know how to capture an image, or capture multiple images, and then use something that can, what you call it, relay these images together versus in a interrupted state. Now, I talked about radios yesterday, and I didn't talk about microphones and speakers because the discussion was more focused on the phone part, right? And the reason why microphones and speakers are not the same thing as a radio or a phone is because the idea behind a speaker was that it wasn't meant to carry voices across a long distance or across any distance. It was basically meant to record, basically, right? If pictures would capture your eyes, then a microphone speaker was meant to capture your voice permanently, right? And this is how people saw the creation of the tape recorder. And even though you don't see tape recorders today, I feel like that technology has never left, even though it is in a flawed format now in the form of a computer. Because, like I said, computers have to be taught how to do everything. You don't have to teach tape how to do anything because the tape was built for what it was supposed to do, which is to capture voice. And even though tape recorders wasn't the first voice capturing invention, there was the what you call it, the disc play, the you know what I mean, the scratch, the disc. It was kind of like tape. The disc, not the disc player. People think when you hear disc, you probably think I'm talking about a CD. The vinyl cassette, right? Something like that. Um, Basically the things, the players, the vinyl players that um that scratch the CD, essentially, and then reads off of that CD by basically scratching it. And this was, I feel like, that even that creation back in the day was pretty advanced, because you would essentially it was like the earliest form of the speaker, because you had to first it was used to record since it's physical, it's going to store it, right, and it's going to be able to play back. But you had to figure out how did you get the voice into the instrument itself, and that's where the microphone speaker deviated, because you could it was mostly used for music, right? You could use it to store the works of a opera, store the works of a pianist, violinist, yada yada. But you really wouldn't use it to talk over the phone or talk to somebody. It wasn't meant for that. It was meant specifically for basically capturing things, and well, capturing voice. And I feel like this was a good the camera was the late invention, while the microphone speaker was just a work in progress. And I feel like like I said before, because the movies didn't start with sound, that's why it was a work in progress, because they had to figure out how could you combine uh image what you would call picture data with voice data in the same format. And before the computer, this is a hard process here. So it was easier. It was actually easier for them to just hire someone to basically play music to reflect the sound, the atmosphere of the situation, and to put words with the images, basically. Which I think putting words with images was a good progression into this combination technology, because the idea is that if you could put if you could put images and words together, right, then combining sound with words and images was that was just that's the topping of the dessert, the cherry on top. So you can see how the television got born, because once you figure out a device that can do all of this, then television became a walk in the park. At the same time, you know television was never perfect, and it still isn't perfect. It's still, even though you have this satellite dish, it's still a fairly primitive technology, in my opinion, because the idea is that a television was never a computer, even if it can use computer qualities, such as information travel over air, which it was accomplished through dish. But as you know, dish doesn't always work when it's what you call it. At the same time, um taking into consideration, a dish still needs to be wired to your TV. You will never have a TV that is not wired, even if you have a I guess the newest technology for this was Xfinity, but in reality it's not, because Xfinity still requires a wired connection at some point or another, even if it's not to the TV itself. So even though TV is like computers, like phones, it's still different, because you don't talk into your TV and talk to people, and you don't the remote is like a computer device, but it's not meant to navigate anything besides the TV. Now they have tried to now in early they have included the internet in TV now, which I guess that works, but you still need to have Ethernet connection and yada yada yada. So that's just a flaw to TV in general. And a TV will always ultimately just be a monitor. It will never be a what you would call, it will never be a processing unit. So this is why I decided to make television televisions its own category, because there are important distinctions that need to be made here, or else people might get television confused with computers. And the reason why I decided to talk about televisions also is that I feel that it is a what you would call a dying breed of the 20th century. It's what you call the it's getting past its prime, right? And the reason why it's getting past its prime is because um by only being useful as a monitor, it is no more different than a accessory to a computer, basically, right? Which, when you think about the fact that monitors and processing units come separately if you buy a desktop, they come together if you buy a laptop, but the idea is that the desktop is still stronger, then you can see how that becomes a growing concern, because you buy a TV and it is a it's not really standing on its own. Now I've seen like some people may use it for a basically a home theater, which that's I feel like that's closer to what it was really meant to be a theater device. But I feel like if it works for you, then it works for you. It also is more useful for a it's basically a I feel it's just I know this is crazy, but I feel like video game consoles and TVs just go together. Like people buy video game consoles without TVs. Video game stores don't even sell TVs, and yet they go hand in hand, because the idea is that you already have a TV. You just didn't get it from the video game store. So I find that kind of funny that a TV will always just be relocated to being a video game monitor, which also feeds back into the argument of another group that I was talking about yesterday of PC enthusiasts, Game New Lahadi, that they basically feel like what's the point of a console when you're basically mimicking a PC? And I feel like I just explained that because if you didn't have a TV at home and you bought a video game console, now you need to buy a TV. But if you already had a desktop to begin with, you wouldn't need either of these things. So I can see their argument with that. However, like I said, TVs are mostly for entertainment purposes in terms of picture and sound. And the only place you go to for picture and sound is the movie theaters. So there you go. Um, you know, that's I feel like that's weird though. That a device can have such a limited use and still be more pervasive in homes than even a video game console, right? Because I feel like if you had to choose one technology that everybody shares in common, it would be the TV, right? And that's just I feel like that's just a habit that we have picked up from the 20th century. The idea that when TVs came around, the world was already advanced, in that people no longer had to use what you would call book logic, right? Because if you're listening to a radio, it's no different from reading a book. You still have to pay attention, you still have to process. Whereas a TV, everything is being done for you. All you have to do is sit there and watch it, right? And even though that's like depending on what you're watching, that may not be enough. You may have to think about what you're watching. Like you got some pretty good TV series out there, but that's just a a funny note to think about, right? That we tend to look at people born in the 20th century. Anybody born in the 20th century is old, right? The new generation, the official new generation, will and always will be the 21st century children, because they were basically born into the best of the technology of the age, right? So it's funny because if you anybody that's not a kid is basically old, even though you may have a smartphone, even though you may have you know any type of communicative technology, video games included, you will never be a new age baby per se, simply off the fact that the TV had already defined a whole century by itself. People no longer you're literally staring at a wall, but the wall is talking to you. The wall is showing you things. The wall is within itself a testament to the future. So, that's just a little food for thought there. Nothing to think about too hard. Now, what I really wanted to talk about with televisions is, what can we really do with them? Like, I feel like, given their relationship to the entertainment industry, they should be a lot more accessible in terms of their ability to navigate these resources. And I feel like that's just a problem that hasn't been fixed, because the idea is that once you make televisions internet compatible, right? You give them the hardware and the software they need to utilize the internet. They're no longer televisions, they're computers, right? So, that's something to think about. However, in a software era, I'm gonna get into that later. That's for later. That's for later. In a software in a software era, televisions become a crutch for hardware dependent industries, right? Because the idea is that if you have a television, then you might as well have a DVD player. You might as well have a VHR, which people don't use anymore. You might as well have a Blu-ray player. I don't get what the difference is, but it's how they go with that quality stuff. Just the components. Beside the components themselves are useless, right? It's the hardware that's the focus, right? The idea that the television alone is keeping alive the CD industry, right? It's keeping alive the physical storage industry in general. Because if they try to completely switch over, right, and basically said if you don't have internet, oh well, it wouldn't work out, because that would mean that the television is useless. All you would need would be a desktop computer, and then that's like industry folding on itself, basically. So the idea is that the television will forever define the 20th century and its precedent in history as a hardware time capsule per se, because anybody who feels like the VHR is not a useful device is sadly mistaken, because you know CD is more of a computer hardware piece anyway. And if you can appreciate a projector, then tape storage should always appeal to you. More importantly, I think it would be interesting if they could integrate television with a projector basically display, because the idea is that television will only progress when tech is focused on the um when television become when hardware progresses the visual display, right? And I feel like a projector helps this because you need to go back to those old roots. You need to take the television and a projector and create a 3D display. I think it would wow the world if you could make a projector able to create 3D images from a TV. If you could get those light displays that people were talking about, right? The idea that that futuristic approach is possible, because watching TV inside of a box isn't that interesting. But when the box comes out at you, now you have a visual scenario that you're not used to, right? And since it's close to July 4th, let's use that as a example. Instead of wouldn't it be cool if TV could look like fireworks, right? Except those fireworks aren't they won't the images created don't go away, they just change because you're watching an ongoing picture. It's like watching an ongoing fireworks show, right? So that's just a what you would call a suggestion, right? And the reason why I even thought of that is because I feel like with the creation of the computer and its influence, television has been put to the back burner in terms of development, in terms of its usefulness to entertainment, and in terms of its ability to entertain. And the reason why a 3D display, a true 3D display, would work is because the idea is that things were already progressing towards that in the late 90s, early 2000s, when they had the what you call it cards. I don't know if you remember, they had those cards with the distorted images, right? What you would call dang, um I want to say retro, but that's not the word. But the idea is that the card had a special reflective material that made it valuable, ideally, right? And the reason why this was moving towards the right direction is because you take this reflective material and you essentially create a screen with it, right? And all you need to do then at that point is apply a light that works with this reflective material, and now you have a 3D display that essentially there you go. So what that would do is not only illustrate how technology has adapted to the future, but show that technology is only one step closer to getting to light displays. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's when you are able to interact with a essentially it's essentially an invisible display, but because because there's no such thing as invisible, it's like interacting with a new form of matter, basically. And I don't know how that will work, but I can basically paint you a picture, right? So we all know that there's a such thing as Wi-Fi, right? And Wi-Fi can essentially reach physical devices, right? So in order to utilize this principle, you create displays, right? That instead of relying on infrared technology, simply rely back on this wave this wave. I don't know how to call it. What do you call it? This invisible interaction thing, right? And I say invisible because your naked eye can't discern it, and yet if you have the right materials, they can interact with it. And you'll notice this when you have a if you ever look at your internet signal, right? It looks the coverage goes down depending on how reachable your device is, right? So in other words, you're not really using invisible. You're not interacting with an invisible matter. You're just interacting with a matter that essentially will pass through you or by you, um provided that you're not the desired material. And how that will work is that you would have a basically fingertips, right? And the idea is that these fingertips will react to the light. Well, it wouldn't really be light. It would be what you would call discernible internet. Let's call it discernible internet for now, because I don't know a better way to explain it. You will have these fingertips which act like your remote control, and they touch the display. And how that will work is that there will be a setting on your TV that would allow you to or rather it probably would have to be more of a glove, right? And you change the setting of the distance of the display to your relative location. So in other words, you could get this you could increase the close the distance between you and the display so that you could essentially interact with it, right? And why that would be and why that would work is because since you're essentially it's like if you can manipulate the internet basically, right? Because that's the principle that will be used behind it. The idea that you are using um, um, something that only reacts to specific materials and otherwise ignores everything else. So you touch the material. Well, you put on a specific glove or whatever instrument they create to interact with it. You then use that instrument to get you close to the TV, what you would call it's like using a remote basically, and you're basically able to change the channel like you would change a smartphone screen, right? Like we already have swipe features, right? We already have flick and all of that other stuff. So wouldn't it be cool if you could do it to a non-physical form? And I feel like that will push the 21st century in the technological stage that it needs to be in, because the idea is that um it will be so sophisticated that people would just have to sit back and appreciate how advanced life has become. And it will also make the television a much more appreciated device again, and also put the computer in the same position that the television was in, because then the television would be the premier entertainment device, and the computer would just be a relic of the past. Oh man, but yeah, TVs, televisions, whatever you want to call them, they are they have character, and that's just a it's what you would explain to something that needs to have some effort get applied to it. Um, Going back to microphones. Now, microphones and speakers are also different. Now, I want you to think of three categories: microphones, speakers, and telephones. They are all different they are all what you would call different devices, right? Telephones essentially are microphones and speakers that don't keep any of the information that they that is basically used. So what that means is that you speak into a microphone, it comes out of a speaker, and then that's it. None of the information is recorded. Now, what microphones and speakers have taken their note in history is that they have went from basically a entertainment device to basically key components of any device nowadays, which is I feel like that's a peculiar path to take. Usually devices have a specific goal with which they reach, whereas microphones and speakers have essentially been taken apart and utilized strategically. Like you may have I don't know if people have the old style speakers with the hand knob for volume and all of that other stuff, basically hand dials that alter how the device interacts with electricity. Whereas microphones have basically been relocated to most computers nowadays. But on a more noticeable note, microphones are a more of a another relic of the past, to be honest with you, because you wouldn't really see a microphone unless you went to a stand up show or you're at a school event or you're at a outside event or something like that. So it can be funny how a microphone has essentially never changed, despite how it has essentially reached and touched just about any technological device out there today. And the reason why it has is because the idea is that if you ever if you ever use something to talk with, it's a microphone. And if you're not deaf, then you're also using a speaker. And if you can't hear it, then whoever you're talking to is using a speaker. So that's just a funny note, because the idea is that it's like if you it's like if you took the television, right, and you made it so that you could only see, and then you took the other part and made it a separate device to wait, that's still using a speaker. Uh, uh, um, dang. You see what I mean? Like the microphone speaker has just taken over everything. Um, what's another thing? Shoot. Hmm. There we go. It's like if you made an invention that could smell, right? And then you took this smell and you were able to send it over an electrical source to a another person, and then you split it up. So then that you made a device that you can only smell, but you can't send it, and then you made another device that you can only receive smells, something like that, right? And that's just how that works. Yeah, though. Televisions, cameras, microphones, speakers, all of these things fall into the same category because they are all related. However, as you can see, they all took different paths. Now, you know, televisions will always be the most noticeable of all the inventions, right? Cameras are less noticeable because most of the time you don't unconsciously use a camera. You either use a camera or you don't use a camera. Microphones and speakers, on the other hand, are I feel like they're just a They don't have a future as a independent product, unless you're talking about speakers for listening to stuff. Like if you wanted to listen to stuff loud, or like speakers just have very limited use in terms of you know what you can really create for them entertainment wise, because the idea is that they will always be a partner to just about any and every device. Because I feel like if you use a device in technology today, you should already have a microphone speaker option automatically written into it. Well, not written, but put into it. Um, just remember what I was talking about before with the car was the holographic, and that brings me to another point about television and camera. Yeah, I forgot to talk about video, right? Which is basically utilization of both concepts. Like it's like it's, if a movie is already captured images, the video is images that are currently being captured, right? And I feel like that's another gap that needs to be fixed, because the camera the camera the computer video is very flawed in its utilization of this process, because it require if you ever try to if you ever capture something on camcorder, right, and then you USB it to your computer, right, and then you rendered the video, whatever, depending on the quality, your computer is going to get stressed out. It's going to, need a lot of resources, and that just goes to show how complicated it is for a computer to do what you know, a camcorder can do effortlessly, really, because it's the approach, right? A camcorder was built for the process. A computer has learned the process, right? So that just goes to show that there is definitely work to be done in that field, because the idea is that once video data becomes easy to manage and easy to reproduce, the idea is that holographics in its truest form could be possible, in the sense that you could essentially record yourself, right, as a pixelated image. Probably not, because that's more of a computer idea, but you could create yourself as a AI, right? And the reason why you could create yourself as an AI is because it would allow the computer to be given an image of you as you are. And that's the importance of developing video technology, because it first starts with the camera's ability to capture you, right? And then in order to capture you and basically imitate you as you are, you need to be able to explain on a technological logic front how this is supposed to be interpreted, right? And then from there you can work with computer stuff, basically, and add you know fancy stuff to it, right? So let's say they got voicemail, right? How cool would it be if you could get a holograph voicemail? Or how cool would it be if you leave your house, right, and if somebody, I don't know, for whatever reason you can't be contacted, right? So somebody goes to your house and they expect you to be there, you're not there. You could leave a holograph setting that essentially activates when you don't open the door and somebody rings your bell or something like that. And basically it will be a recorded image of you basically who's there, which is I could avoid another. I could avoid more problems too. A lot of times people. I feel like that's a situation today that a lot of people still uncomfortable with the idea of somebody knocking at your door and it being a total stranger. So by having a holograph recording, you can explain who you are and why you're not there. You don't have to tell them where you're going and all that stuff, but you get the idea, right? If the person is looking for the right person, then they have an incentive to come back. If the person does not have the right person, then they can't say that they don't know who they're talking about. So I feel like that solves a lot of problems. Also, holographic can be a good basically anti-theft feature, because the idea is that when it really gets complicated, right? Your holograph can be a your holograph can holograph somebody in your house or is doing something, right? So this is where things get really cool, right? So what happens is your holograph, it comes out, right? Whenever, whatever, I don't know how it would trigger, right? Basically, when you this is a more of a futuristic thing, but the idea is that if someone does not if you do not key your way in, you probably use a key card instead of a key, but you get the idea, right? And it doesn't give off the right signature, a holograph automatically activates, right? And now this holograph is it's like a image that's reflecting another image, right? And the image is reflecting is whoever is pointing at, right? And how that would work is that you know every software requires hardware, right? But that's cool. The idea is that the holograph acts as a basically a camera, right? So it's moving the camera around to basically act as a feed. And that will creep a lot of people out, because the idea is that the holograph is going to make you think that maybe I should leave if you broke into somebody's house, and the holograph is basically walking around capturing all angles of the house. And it can get even more so complicated when you are able to basically distinguish certain things with a computer. Like, for example, if your computer is able to distinguish when a holograph object hits a non-holograph object, to basically focus on that, and get a close up, get a yada yada yada, all the things you would need to figure out who's in your abode. And television camera can get really cool. Also, you could also use a what you would call a camera feed, right? Which is already possible. You can already connect a television to a camera, but wouldn't it be cool if you could watch from your smartphone device, right? What's going on in your house, right? And how that will work is your television would be it would have a port for a router, right? A router, yeah, a router, right? So it's internet connected, right? So what happens is your phone has its own internet. So you go through your phone into your to your router, and then from your router into your TV, and now you can watch anything that's going on from your TV. And where it gets really cool is if your TV has a pivoting mechanism, right? So now if I tilt my phone, then the TV tilts too. If I tilt it the other way, the TV tilts too. And you can essentially use your phone as a controller for your TV, just to see what's going on in case you need to. And that's just a lot of. I mean, a lot of these features will require cooperation between the television and the TV and the computer. However, the idea is that the key person in all of this will be a TV, excuse me, because this technology would rely on the TV's ability to reflect back images accurately, to basically give clear and concise still imagery, or be able to capture something moving. You know, that was a really key. That was another key feature of the video: the ability to slow down and speed up images being taken, which does require uh 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 it requires measurement per se, right? And the measurement is how many images your basically your camera can capture in a second, which can get really fast depending on how sophisticated your hardware is. So the idea is that the TV is the clutch player in all of this, because it allows for multiple venues of basically display, right? And I feel like this is a key word to keep in your mind: display. Television will always be the king of display, because the idea is that it requires a specific hardware set that a computer just won't have naturally, right? Because computer is supposed to just be focused on being able to run programs, which requires its own hardware set and resources. So if a display set has to have its own hardware resources, that gives it an advantage over other devices and keeps it relevant in this very competitive market that we have today. So that's I almost gave up on the TV, to be honest with you, but now I feel like the TV does have a future. I just had to think about what was I missing that the TV has done, or what is the essential logic behind the TV. And like I said, the essential logic, well, not the essential logic, but what I said was that display is the key word of the TV. And if you can appreciate a good display, then you can appreciate the TV. And with that said, that wraps up our tech hour. And back to the shout outs. Shout out to Juanita Hooper, Shamia Skinner, Chris Vasquez, and my mans at the malls who I miss. I'm gonna see you again, kid. Word up. But shout out to my anonymous pages: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55. 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63. In terms of don't expect any new station goals, I just got started with this. Only thing I gotta say about that is that I'm trying to figure out what to do for the next because I'm gonna double it again. Next time I reach my new goal, I'm going to be doing 2 more hours instead of an additional hour. And the hard part is figuring out what to talk about consistently, because as you can see today, I had a kind of difficulty going on with this tech stuff, because tech can at times be repetitive, and then at times tech can be it can be a hard thing to navigate sometimes, because a lot of this stuff is related. Um Charity wise, nothing big has come up. Hopefully I'll get something before the end of this week. In my business, I just seen something I like today, so I have to try it out. Now things are becoming time constraint sensitive, because I found myself um basically having to plan stuff out. Not a script, of course, but I find myself needing to use my time wisely, or I will find myself with no time at all. But that's just me telling you what's going on. No need to worry. I'll always come out with my content. Never have an excuse for that. And all you gotta do is just keep supporting, man. However you choose to support. But besides that, have a good day, and my friends, always stay tech savvy.